Scott Reid, our CTV News political commentator. Scott, should we stay or go? What do you think?
I think we'll stay. Thank you very much. Look, I know this gets people sort of chuckling and it gets people chatting on both sides of the border. And it's probably just born of this, juvenile bro, Joe Rogan, maybe compensating for something culture that Trump likes to take part on. And he likes to memify his way and troll Trudeau, who's a bit of a symbol for all those guys and like to punch at him. But this is insulting and this is disrespectful. And it's not just those things toward Justin Trudeau. It's literally insulting and disrespectful toward Canada. He calls Canada a state, the great state of Canada. We're not a state, we're a country. In fact, we're your most important ally and partner in the entire world. And I just don't think it can be treated with a shrug of the shoulders. I know he's trying to taunt us, but I feel taunted.
But how do you deal with it then? What does Trudeau do with this? Does he come out tough against him, or does he ignore it and work on a game plan?
Well, look, you could see from Chrystia Freeland's tortured response that it's a delicate and difficult issue. Obviously, Trump holds a lot of cards in this relationship with these threats of tariffs. When I was a kid and you had to deal with a bully, you'd try a bunch of things. You'd try to avoid him. If you couldn't avoid him, you'd try to get along with him. If you couldn't get along with him, and based on these notes, it's pretty clear Trump doesn't have any interest in getting along, then eventually you had to throw some dirt in his eyes, kick him in the knees, and bring him down. Now, he might get up and pound you, but at least he'll respect you from that point forward. So my answer to you, Roger, is I think it is time for a show of strength. I think trying to get along isn't working. Trying to avoid him isn't possible. And if I was the prime minister, next Monday's the economic statement. I'd release a list of retaliatory tariffs and say, well, if they're going to go, this is what we're going to target. Let's see if a little show of steel might change Donald Trump's tone. Maybe at least he'll call us a country.
But and what kind of a response do you think that would elicit, though, from Trump? Would he come back at us harder? Could this escalate? Or would he say, oh, okay, I can work with you now?
Well, ultimately, we're going to end up having to introduce retaliatory tariffs. So I think what is the benefit and what is the virtue of following this path, where we say nothing, we let him just doormat us over and over and over again? I'm not talking about engaging in a trade war. I haven't lost all my mind over a tweet. But ultimately, my conclusion for the past 10 days is that Trump is going to continue to regard silence as weakness, and he'll continue to poke and disrespect. My take is B, the prime minister has a responsibility to push back in defense of the national interest. And C, he's going to introduce these tariffs anyway. I think we are living in a la-la land to imagine that he isn't, that there's some charm offensive that's going to convince him to not introduce these tariffs. The question really is going to be whether or not we can make that uncomfortable and not in his interest. Part of that will be retaliatory tariffs. I would signal that now. The prime minister himself hinted at it this morning. I would actually give a list and say, this is exactly where you're going to start to feel the pain.
And just before we go, would this relationship between Canada and the U.S. change at all if Poilievre is elected? We're looking at the possibility of there's talk maybe a winter or spring election. Would that change any of this?
I don't think it would. It would change the personalities. But look, Donald Trump nearly threw his vice president to the mob. He doesn't know anything of having allies. So those people who say, well, this is all about Trudeau and, Poilievre will be able to deal with it. Maybe they're more kindred spirits in terms of their outlook on the world. Sorry, the second that Poilievre is obligated, as he will be if he's prime minister, to tell Trump no, well then, he goes on the short list for Donald Trump. So we're going to face these challenges, whether it's Trudeau or Poilievre, and all those who sort of giggle and laugh and say, oh, this is funny and I don't like Trudeau anyway. Well, just remember, he's not just trolling Trudeau, he's trolling Canada. And Pierre Poilievre, if he's smiling today, he's going to be frowning tomorrow, because this could well be his set of problems a year from now.
Okay. Scott, thank you as always for your insight, sir.
Thanks, Roger.
Scott Reid is our CTV News political commentator.